Hey there, welcome to the Xennial Mindset Show. I'm Marie Mack, born in 1983.
And I'm Enri Pasquino from the crew of 1977. Together, our mission is to unravel the intricate layers of the Xennial mindset, where cherished memories of cassette tapes and rotary phones seamlessly coexist with cutting-edge technology and social media frenzy.
We'll also have some awesome guest Xennials dropping by, bringing their own stories and insights to the table.
So, whether you're a fellow Xennial craving a trip down memory lane, or just curious to know what the Xennial mindset is all about, stick around.
The Xennial Mindset Show is your backstage pass to our world where nostalgia meets innovation. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. We are here again with a wonderful episode, and today's topic is going to be about our travel adventures. I'm sure if you are a Xennial, then you are like us, and you love to get out there and just see the country, the world, all of the amazing things that are out there, and we're going to chat about it today. Before we get going, quick reminder about what the heck is a Xennial in the first place. So we are a part of this beautiful micro generation that is born between 1977 and 1983. So I'm the 83 class, and Marie over there is the 1977 class. And we have this very amazing and unique perspective that sits in between Gen Xers and Millennials. So if that is you, you are in the right place. If it is not, hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about who we are and the way that we think about things. That's why we put together Xennial Mindset in the first place. So today we're going to talk about a lot of travel stuff because this is near and dear to both of our hearts. And Marie is a huge travel excitement person. I am too. And we have lots of plans, not only this year, but in years past. And I think a lot of it stemmed from childhood and what happened in those early pivotal years. So first things first, Anne-Marie, what are we talking about?
So we're going to talk about our generation's approach to travel. Why do we love it so much? And just explore our practical mindset as we put together trips. And I want to hear from you. How do you go about planning a trip and why? So I think before we actually get there, let's talk about our early travel experiences. Marie, tell me about like one of your early memories and how did your family travel? What did you guys do? Did you go camping? Did you go to the beach? Did you get on a plane? Did you take a train? Because we definitely know that travel is very, very different. Our childhood travel I think we'll start to look at early childhood experiences and what we're doing today. And I'm sure we're going to see a big difference there. So tell me about your early childhood travel experiences.
Yes, absolutely. So early travel for me, I am the oldest of four. If you guys if you haven't listened to episode 1, it tells you a little bit about who we are and our backgrounds. And Marie and I, thankfully, we bookmark this amazing generation, but we also bookmark it in a lot of different ways. So I have siblings, oldest of 4, which means taking a party of 6, 2 parents, 4 kids across anywhere to do anything is a financial commitment. So we did a lot of travel in the car. And we did a lot of local travels. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. So desert. There are no beaches there. I think there's a song about a beach in desert or something. Waterfront property in Arizona. It doesn't exist. So we did a lot of outdoor stuff and in the desert. And I remember us doing a lot of camping out there. Back when we were traveling, there weren't as many, we'll say, seatbelt requirements. So I remember like a whole bunch of kids being stacked into the back of a very big vehicle and just kind of going. I don't remember traveling on a plane or anything until I was probably like 15, maybe 12, 15. I say that, but I did go to Paris when I was very young. I don't know. we just kind of went out. I'm thankful because all of my love for travel came from those very early childhood experiences of getting up and going. Like we were not sedentary people at all, which I think probably started
So
that
did you,
baseline. What about you? Were you? I don't know this about you.
so my experience, it's interesting. I'm learning so much about you as we have these conversations. So my experience was very different. I am an only child. So it was just me and my parents. My first travel memory was, I am from Canada. For those of you who don't know, I live in Canada. I was born in Montreal, Quebec, so Eastern Canada. And in the early 80s, my parents decided to move to Western Canada, Edmonton, Alberta, because there was the big oil boom. So there was opportunities out here. So my first travel memory was actually driving from Montreal to Edmonton. So that was a big move for us. Very much like Marie, I remember being in a car. I didn't have to share the back seat because I was an only child, but I do remember my parents smoking in the car.
Yes,
And
definitely.
that was an okay thing, and using the ashtray in a vehicle.
That
And
there were
sometimes the
ashtrays in
windows being
vehicles. Like
closed, and there
there's
were
not even
ashtrays in the
ashtrays
vehicles.
anymore.
Yeah. So we drove across the country to move here out to Western Canada. So that was my first, and I was probably 4 at the time. So that was probably my first memory. My second memory, very, very different, living out here in Western Canada. We went to Hawaii
Oh gosh.
for Christmas and New Year's. So I went from in a car traveling across the country to getting on a plane and spending Christmas and New Year's in Hawaii with my parents and cousins and aunts and uncles. And I remember that as if it was yesterday. And I was probably about 6 or 7 at the time.
Mm.
So not much older, but yeah, it was quite the trip. And I remember it. And then we went to Disney World in California. Is it just
Land.
Disney
We're gonna go with
Land?
Disneyland.
Disney World. Yeah,
Is in
Disney. Yeah.
Florida.
And we ended our trip. Yeah, exactly. So we ended our trip there. So I remember that because as a kid, who doesn't want to go to Disney? So yeah, that's my first childhood travel memory. So very different,
Yeah.
but definitely, got the bug in me as a young child. And as I grew older, I don't think we did that many trips. I think in my teens, we probably did a couple of Mexico vacations, but nothing bigger than that, nothing on a larger scale. How about yourself? What did your teens look like?
So my family, I would say, was very nomadic. We've always moved a lot. My parents, my mom and her second husband owned their own business. So we were traveling a lot for that. I don't remember being in one school more than 2 years for my entire school until I was in high school. In high school, I think it got even less. Like we were traveling a lot less. But we also moved across the country back the other way. I was on the West Coast, moved to the East Coast. So quite interesting that our paths were different there. But yeah, so we moved to North Carolina where I live now. And that was fun. Like cross country move was my mom, and without any husbands or anything at that point. So she was a single mama of 4, moved us from Arizona to North Carolina, and we set up roots here. So since then, I've probably done 7 cross-country moves. We move a lot. And I think it's just because there was this
Wow.
opening of it's okay. Like you can move cross-country and it's not a big deal. So teenage years was in that space where it sort of opened up this possibility that we aren't sedentary people and we like to move around a lot. Which I'm excited about because we're giving that to my kids now. Like we have kids and we travel a ton, and it is that love of seeing the country and moving in and out and around and traveling to different places. Like you went to Hawaii, I've been to Paris, like we've been to all these different places. So it's quite interesting. And I think we could probably do an entire show about all the different places that we have visited and like the cultures that are there and the people that we meet and all the things that are happening and how much I think as Xennials, we eat that up. Like we want to have all these different cool experiences. And just from the space of optimism and like positivity and experience, I'm going to go ahead and say it's because we're Xennials. We want to know what other people are into and how it works. And it's great because
let's talk about.
I like food.
Exactly. And you guys will learn that I'm all about food, and that's the reason I travel. But let's talk about how we got from point A to point B, because I think that is a big part of our upbringing. I remember doing my first European trip with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. And I literally went with a folder. I think it was like those accordion folders with maps and photocopies and books and brochures and pictures, because we didn't have phones. We didn't have internet. We didn't have any of that. And even if we did, I think in the earlier days we did, but we couldn't afford to turn it on. And there was no GPS and there was none of that. So we actually had to I was like highlighting, on a map where we had to go. And I have to be honest with you, I kind of miss that, because now it's so easy. You just like plug it in and it's like, okay, Google Maps or, whatever people are using. It's like now you even could avoid traffic, avoid tolls, avoid all of that. But back in the day, it was, using the pen, and it's like, oh my God, like you literally had all these papers all over in the car and you were trying to figure out which route to take. So I think that speaks to like our thought process, right? Because we actually had to do some of those things. It wasn't as simple as pressing a button, right? I think today, if I were to take that, and I still have it because I didn't want to throw it out. If you actually take that and give it to like a younger generation, they would be like, what is this and why? Right. But it was that, how can I say? It was just that excitement, it was like that drive excitement. Okay, we're going to go to the next location, and which route do we take and which highway? And it looks like this one's closer to the water and this one's inland. And, you didn't know if you were going through towns, you had no idea what the route was going to look like, but it was an adventure.
Well, I think there's a lot of intimacy in planning something like that. Like I'm sure everybody remembers going to like AAA. I don't know. My grandparents used to do this all the time. They would go to AAA and be like, here's where we're going to go. And then leave with that stack of maps. And then like the really big maps of like the country, and trying to figure out which page you have to go to based on like what state or whatever I don't know if you guys did that, but we had this huge set of maps. But you get very intimate. I think there's that nostalgia of being intimate with where you're going and like what it's going to look like. And this excitement of like crossing state lines. I remember it being such a big deal when we would like cross a state line, because you would actually like have to flip to another page or flip to another map or something. And that is, I feel like, a little bit lost currently. I think it's definitely easier to plan, but I don't know that we're as connected to the trip and the travel as an adventure in itself. And that might be something, I agree. I miss that part. I miss those wild turns that you're just like, the map said to go left, and so we're just going to go left, and you have no idea what's down there. And hopefully, and it was safe. Now, like at this moment, I think if we were in some cities and we turned the wrong corner, we'd probably be in a neighborhood that isn't safe. But back then it was not a big deal, which is so great. So I'm with you. I think I would say it'd be very hard. Maybe our listeners can say this too. You let us know. Would you go back to planning a trip just on paper maps? I don't know. I don't know if I could do it.
I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know. I do want to go back to what you said about the excitement of, crossing that state line or seeing that monument or seeing that. I think in today's world, because of, we have access to everything and the information, and people do blogs and people post pictures, that excitement is not there anymore. It's obviously nice to see it in person, but back in the day, you would get there and you've seen a picture in a book and that's all you've seen. So now you're actually seeing it with your own eyes. And I think that was the thrill and the excitement of seeing something and taking a picture with our cameras, right? Like the actual film, right? The film. And then you're like, okay, I got to take 2 or 3 because I don't know what these are going to look like, right? And printing that. And I think I miss that a bit. There's that nostalgia, and I just kind of like, yeah, I would go back. Probably not every trip. I would pick the ones that I would want to. But I think that is, there was a lot of thought and work. And I'm not saying that there isn't that today, because you still have to plan these trips out pretty well. But back then, I think there was a lot more. And I think there was, if you did a trip, I remember the first time I went to Europe, I didn't start from scratch. My sister-in-law actually gave me all of the work that she did. And I took that and then looked at it and built it from there, because to start from scratch was like really, really hard, especially if you were going to a place that you had never been to before.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. Okay. So we talked about our childhood memories. We talked about, why we travel, our love for travel. We talked about technology a little, right? In terms of, maps and all of that. How do you book your travel, Marie? Like, do you remember back in the day? I remember, for those of you who don't know, I worked for an airline for 20 years, about 20 years. And like back in the day, we had paper tickets, and these paper tickets had like 3 or 4 different carbon copies that literally, like, every time you pass somewhere in the airport, they'd pull out a copy of it and you had to keep these with you. So, travel and how we book travel today is very, very different. Do you remember that, Marie?
Yeah. Well, and I don't remember doing a lot of, I didn't take a lot of flights, so I don't remember that as a younger, up until like we could actually go up and do something online, at least look it up and like call, but maybe just calling somebody, like calling a travel agent or calling the airlines and saying, okay, I need a flight from here to there. And then you have to go in and you have to like check in with everything. Like, you still have those paper tickets. But we did a ton of road travel. So there was a lot of planning on how we were going to get there, where the stops might have been, how much food did we need to bring, like snacks and everything, especially with having a bunch of kids, like stopping to get food isn't necessarily it. So a cooler was always with us anytime we went anywhere. And I think that's similar to now. Like, we don't really leave for a long trip. My kids would not leave the house without a snack, no matter how long I said, because usually we're going to find some kind of adventure. So even now, it's just sort of ingrained to, when we leave the house, bring a snack and water. And I don't know if it came from that, like, early childhood times of travel, and you might get lost down a side road. My mom always, always, always has a gallon of water and snacks and a change of clothes in her car every time. And I think it's just because we've been broken down so many times in the middle of nowhere, trying to get to the next place. And she's like, nope, not doing it. And I borrow her car sometimes now. And I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? Oh my gosh. But that's her experience, is just like things that are happening and the plans that are there. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. So definitely how we book travel has changed over time. Today it is so easy. I don't know if you know, Marie, but I actually got my diploma in travel and tourism and went
Totally didn't know
through
that.
travel agent training. Back in the day, I'm like, I didn't want to be a travel agent. I wanted to work for an airline, which I ended up doing, but I went through the whole training. So being in the systems and looking at flights and all of that wonderful stuff. But today it's so easy. Today it's literally go online. They have apps. It's easy. You don't even have to print a boarding pass. You don't have to do any of that. It's all on your phone,
I think you
which
can scan.
is
I think
great.
you can scan a boarding pass on my watch now. Pretty certain.
That's crazy. That's nuts. So going from like carbon copy 3-4 pages of a ticket to having to call a travel agent to book your travel, right? And then deciding from there what you want to do. I can't even imagine having to book excursions with a travel agent and not being able to do it online, but to where we are today. So I think that is incredible. Let's talk about practical travel tips, planning and budgeting, and just kind of the cost of travel has gone up so much. And I think I had seen a study somewhere saying that it's only in the next 10 years going to get more expensive. And I don't know how people are actually going to be able to afford to travel. So how do you and your family plan and budget for travel?
Yeah, we do a lot of trips. Currently, we do a lot of trips with the kids. Our kids are going into their teenage years, so they're young teens. And we really want them, these are the experiences we want to do with them. So I would say a decent portion of our monthly income goes to travel plans. I was looking at the other day about what people spend their money, their excess money on, and it's like travel and makeup and like a couple other things, concerts, experiences, which I think just lends really well to who I know I am. Is I want to have an experience out there. And if I don't have the fanciest car, or if I don't have the fanciest house, or if I buy almost all of my clothes from Goodwill, because I would rather spend my money on travel. So we plan a lot every single year. In the last several years, 5 years or so, we have found cruises to be quite amazing for our family, because my kids love it. The food's all cooked. Somebody comes and like cleans up your room, which is great. And we can get to some really cool destinations a lot cheaper than it is to buy tickets, airline tickets for a family of 4. Because like you said, it's expensive. It's so expensive. And if we can get on a cruise and we can be on there for 7 days, we can probably hit maybe 3 or 4 different locations, do a couple excursions for the same price. So we're looking for like budget friendly sort of things sometimes. And I think that I spend a lot of time planning how experiences happen for my family because I want them to go so well. Now, I'm a planner. I don't know if that's because I'm a Xennial or not, but I'm a planner and I know things are going to go well if we have a plan. So I do a lot of that. Definitely do a lot of app work. I do a lot of sale hunting. I don't know. You're planning a big trip right now. So how are you planning your trip?
Am.
It's exciting.
So
and yours is international.
I am a planner as well. Yes. So I'm not going to say we're creatures of habit, but our 2 go-to places are Miami, Florida. We love to go there. My sister-in-law has a condo, and it's just our home away from home. And then we love to go to Italy as well too. So in Italy, we have a family home there, and then we take little adventures from there. So very much like you, we plan, we budget, obviously, because everybody needs to budget. But over the years, we've changed what is important to us. So for me, it's good flights. We have to we're not campers. In Western Canada, if you camp, you can have some really great adventures in the mountains, but that's not what we do. We are not beach people. So we actually like to go to locations where we can do pool, we can do beach, we can shop, we can eat, we can do whatever we want. So that is the type of travel that we do. But what is important for us and what's changed over the year is flights. So, connection times. I used to look for the cheapest flights. I now look for the flights that are going to offer me comfortable seats. Because as we get older, I want to make sure that, especially if it's a long haul, that we are comfortable, that today, luggage is included. All of those fees are included. Because if you are taking, and I always tell people, because people are always like, oh, you know what? Like there's so many great deals out there. And I'm like, yeah, there are. But once you book that flight for $69 and add your luggage and add your seat and add everything else, you are probably at the same price as, another major airline that has everything included. So I do spend a lot of time researching that and doing fair comparisons and just really looking at that. But over time, that's what has become the most important thing for me. My husband's over 6 feet tall, so he needs that leg room. I'm a very tall person too. I need that leg room. And when you're younger, you're like, oh, I don't care. I remember the first time we took a flight to Florida. It was on Allegiant. And I literally had my knees like up to my chest and I didn't care because we paid $50. And I was like, great. And, and we slept in the car. We had to drive to Plattsburgh. We slept in the car for 6 hours. And it was great because, 15, 20 years ago, I didn't care. I just wanted to save money. Today, my experience is very different. I'm going to pay that extra $50, $100 not to have to drive over the border, sleep in the car, be comfortable. If I miss my flight, there's another plane that's going to come and get me and bring me to my location. So for me, I do my due diligence ahead of time. But I'm, obviously very mindful of money and all of that. But I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable and, have everything that I need. And then most of my money, I probably say goes to food, and not expensive food, just good food. I want to try all the goodness, all the food, all the restaurants. I love those shows like Drivers, Diners, and Dives and all that beautiful stuff. And I'm like, I love being able to check it off my list and say, I went here and I went here. So that's really what we love to do when we travel.
I love that. I think we travel with kids a lot. There are not a lot of trips that we go on that the kids don't go with us. So I choose to spend a lot of our money on experiences. Like we're going to go on the excursion out on the cruise, or we're going to plan to go out to some kind of show when we're at a certain location. And we eat in a lot. Like we actually pack a lot of food with us. Like we love national parks. We'll go to national parks all of the time. We have a trip planned this summer, and we're going to be at the South Dakota National Parks. We have already planned to eat in and pack lunch for 4 of the 5 days we are there. And it's just because not only the kids, like there's a financial aspect, but to get everybody up there, it's a thing. So I think that there's just a difference between, and not that it's good or bad. Like you have the two of you and you have a really beautiful and amazing experience and you want to do those things. We're going to be a party of 9 with 5 kids. And that's amazing too. Like it's just a different experience. Yeah. The big thing, and I think that maybe all of our Xennial friends will be in the same boat, is getting out there and going and doing the thing. I mean, we're talking about bigger trips, but we live in North Carolina. It's absolutely gorgeous space. Like we could go in our literal backyard and camp in a national forest, which is a lot of fun. But we also have the lake really close. So like this past weekend, we were on the lake and we would do a big trip over there. And we've spent the night 5 minutes away, but it's just some kind of little travel adventure that's out there. A little bit more on the spontaneous side. I think if I'm going to be a spontaneous traveler, it's going to be within a driving distance. It's not going to be within like a flight. I don't know. Do you do spontaneous travel? Do you guys do that?
I have done it in the past. Yes.
Like, no,
but
my
it
plan
usually involves a plane. Like it usually involves a plane. And I think a lot of my spontaneous travel happened when I worked for the airline. Because I was standby. So it was like, okay, great, let's go. I remember my first trip to Vegas. I went with my sister-in-law and it was like, great, let's go. And we went with one luggage and we literally shared clothes all weekend just to take different pictures and different clothes. And we were there for 2 days and we stayed at the Imperial Palace. So for those of you who had been to Vegas and know Vegas, Imperial Palace is no longer there. It was one of the oldest hotels on the Strip, probably the not too up there in terms of stars. But we stayed there, conveniently located. And I remember the Sunday we were walking around and we're like, there's so many people out here on the streets. Like, what the hell's going on? So we actually stopped and asked somebody and we said, what's going on? Like, why are all these people? And he looked at us and he said, it's the friggin' Super Bowl.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
So talk about spontaneous, right? We're like, we got on a plane, we went to Vegas. It was Super Bowl weekend. We had no idea, but we were just able to pick up and go. So done a couple of those in my lifetime, but it was easier back then when travel was a lot easier. It was, pre 9/11 and all of that stuff. So we didn't have to, go through all that.
Yeah.
So
that's a different thing between then and now too, is like this 9/11 thing happened. I mean, we were right high school, early college years, right? So that changed everything. It changed the whole book on what we could have done then and what we can plan and what we can do now and the cost for things, because I think that I'm going to make a bold statement that before 9/11, we didn't have quite as many people that were checking luggage, or there was no security, and you were in this travel space, so you probably know this way better than I do, but we're not paying for all these people at the airport anymore, where now it's like an excess amount of people we have to pay for and security and better planes, which I think is probably good, like security and safety wise. But, that's an interesting point to see, like the difference between what we experienced as kids and what we're experiencing now is because of this really huge thing that happened all over of course it happened in the US, but it was a worldwide effect because of all the security and things. So fascinating.
Absolutely.
So friend, love this conversation.
Yes. I know. And I feel like we have to have a part 2.
I feel like you're right. So everybody who's listening, come back around because there are some more things that we didn't get to touch on. We like to make these episodes as bite-sized as we can, but share with us a little bit about what your experience was when you were younger and how it is now and your love for travel if it's out there. And if you don't love travel, what might have happened that you don't? It's completely fine. We have no judgment, but it's always fun to hear how people experience in their childhood affects who they are now. So we'll see those in the comments. Thank you guys again for being with us, and check us out on the next episode where we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some travel ideas and things that Xennials, a little bit mindset stuff. So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Xenial Mindset Show. We hope that you enjoy the deep dive into unique perspectives that defines our generation. A big shout out to our incredible guest Xennials who shared their stories and insights. If you want to stay connected and continue the conversation, please follow us on social media at the Xenial Mindset Show. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us. Join us again next week as we unpack even more captivating topics, unraveling the threads of the Xennial experience. Until then, this is Marie Mack and Amp signing off. Keep embracing the Xennial mindset and remember, the best is yet to come.